on-field presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
Welcome to Duck Insider.
Man, it feels great to be a Duck.
Give it to me, baby. My house. I'm taking it there.
Their competitors, they'll want to put the O on.
Three, got it!
We're going to compete to a standard every day.
The Oregon standard.
Rebound. Up and in. 1 point more to go.
The opportunity to play, put Oregon on your chest, should mean a great deal to you.
Unloads on one into left field, back toward the wall. Gone!
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Oregon wins!
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Better banking, local solutions. Live from the Country Financial Studio, let's talk Oregon athletics.
Well, normally on a Thursday afternoon, we'd be looking ahead to a big men's basketball game in the evening. Fortunately, today we get a look back at a dominant, and I mean dominant, win against California last night. That's the majority of the show today. I'll talk about it. You'll hear from Dana Altman on post-game radio after the big win against the Golden Bears. Joey Mack joined us a little bit earlier. We'll play that audio, and then later on in the show, we start looking ahead towards what I think is going to be a war in Corvallis against the Beavers for the women's team on Friday night. Let's dive right into this big win for Oregon men's basketball over California. Entering this game, you kind of had the idea that there was going to be a good chance they were going to win this game. You thought that the factors were coming together for Oregon to go on a little bit of a run here, right? Jermaine Couisnard finally healthy. Keyshawn Bartholomew healthy with 2 games under him. Nate Biddle back, heading into his second start. Brennan Rigsby also healthy. You also felt pretty good because Oregon was coming off a classic Dana Altman performance with 51 defensive deflections against Arizona. And you felt good about it because they're heading into a weekend with 2 of the 3 worst teams in the Pac-12 conference against Cal and Stanford. It should come together. And yet I'm sure a lot of you were like me watching the start of that game. Cal coming out of the under 16-minute timeout with a quick 4-0 run to go up 10-5. Nothing's going in. I got a little bit worried. But N'Faly Dante, easy layup. Down 10-5. It's 10-7. Gets another layup. Keyshawn Bartholomew with a layup inside. Will Richardson gets to the line and hits 2 free throws. Will Richardson hits a jumper. The first of multiple 10-0 runs in the game, and Oregon never looked back. Ultimately, a huge win, 87-58 over California. 5 Ducks scored in double figures. Will Richardson had an off night and had a double-double, 11 points and 10 assists. That's the third time he's had 10 assists, at least 10 assists in a game this year. Rivaldo Soares finally saw a shot go down. It seems like that stroke is so smooth. He hit 3 3-point shots, led the team with 13 points. N'Faly Dante had 12 points, 7 rebounds. And how about Nate Biddle with a career-high 11 points in 21 minutes? Also added 6 boards and a block and coexisted with a fellow 7-footer and N'Faly Dante on the floor. Keyshawn Bartholomew had 10, hit all 4 of his free throws. And, that's 5 double-figure Ducks, but Couisnard and Guerrier almost had 10 themselves with 9 and 8 respectively. So a big win, one to build on. Dana Altman praised the effort defensively, the intensity, made it a business trip. Joey Mack checked in with him after the road win at the Golden Bears.
Coach, an 87-58 win. Got to be pretty happy with your team's performance here this evening.
I thought the guys played really hard. Will, with 10 assists, he led us in deflections. We had almost 40 deflections, our goal. I thought the guys, really took the wind out of their sails, just not giving up easy baskets. 21 points at half. I love that. And, I just thought defensively we had a lot better energy and a lot better movement than what we've had.
How about rebounding, too? Ended up out-rebounding them by a pretty significant margin.
Yeah, the +9, and we got off to a bad start. We were -5 at the second TV timeout, and got up to a +2 at half, and then we were +7 in the second half. So +9 is a good number. You know, they're big, they're athletic, they're physical. So to beat him 9 on the boards was really good.
You mentioned Will. I wanted to hit on him. Just the way that he controls games for you. It seems like this was a great example of it with the assists.
I thought he played really good. 10 assists, 2 turnovers, 5 to 1. Would take that any night. And the guy's missed a couple. He could have 13 or 14. So just loved the energy the guys brought, and we got to do it 12 more times. We've had our bad nights, and every team has them in a 31-game schedule, but we've used all ours up. So we got to figure out a way to bring focus, discipline, energy, 12 times here. And if we do that, I'll take our chances. With Keyshawn back and Jermaine back, Brennan back, Nate back, it just gives us a lot of depth. We play 9, 10, 11 guys and really be active. So I do like our depth, and we just got to get everybody playing hard, playing together, play hard, play together, and I think they'll like the results.
How about the balanced scoring too, Coach? You have 5 players in double figures. Really spread it out tonight.
We did, and Jermaine, coming off a 27-point, we just didn't get him many shots, but that's Jermaine. He just wants to win. I thought he was really unselfish, made a lot of really good plays, got the ball moving, and handled it, didn't turn it over. I thought he played really good.
Nice to see the ball go through the net for Rivaldo Soares, I'd imagine, too.
Yeah, he's really struggled, and his percentages aren't that bad, and he's tight. He hit that first one, and then he hit a couple, so 3 for 5. Just get his head up. We don't want him taking anything that's not wide open, but the ones he took tonight were wide open, and they're probably going to give him some every night to see if he can hit them. His percentages, everybody has a scouting report. He's probably going to get some looks. So if he just takes his time, and the nights he's shooting it good, go ahead, fire it up. The nights he's not, drive that thing at the hole and make a play for somebody.
Well, Coach, congratulations on the win. I know a lot of positives, and you mentioned you got to keep building on it now.
Oh, absolutely. That, like I said, we've used up all our duds, Joe. We've got to bring it 12 times, and that's what I was emphasizing to the team. We can't be patting ourselves on the back. We've got to get that game on Saturday, and we've got to bring a lot more energy. And Stanford's always been tough on us, so we're going to have to really be ready to go. 8 o'clock game, we're going to lay around here for 2 days. Going to be pain in the rear, but hopefully at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, we'll be ready to go.
Well, Coach, appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Coach Altman talking about bringing it. A stat that really reflects that, a defensive stat that jumps off the page. Oregon goes 1 of 10 in the first half against Cal from three-point range, and yet they remain active defensively. They hold Cal to 21 points at the break on 7 of 25 shooting. Cal shoots 28% from the field. So it's tough in basketball usually when you're missing shots to remain intense and locked in defensively. Oregon does that, and then you look up at the end of the game, and Oregon's shooting nearly 40% from 3. That's kind of how it works. You stay locked in, the shots will ultimately fall. I thought offensively, you could tell the different dynamic that Oregon was able to have, given that Keyshawn Barthélemy and Jermaine Couisnard are healthy and a big part of the offense now. They, I think, have a gravity offensively that prevents a defense from loading up against Will Richardson. Their presence totally changes the offense, and their presence, you could see how much it helped Will Richardson because he was driving and dishing for a whole lot of assists, double-digit assists for the 3rd time this season, a double-double for Will Richardson. Jermaine Couisnard talked about that different dynamic offensively with Joey after the big win against Cal, and let's go to that here.
I don't know if you remember this, but I joked with you when you first came on that if you play well, then you're stuck talking to me.
Yeah.
I guess you
the
played.
very first game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you played well tonight,
I played
huh?
okay.
Yeah. You just played okay.
Yeah. I did some. I had some defensive assignments that I missed, but other than that, I feel like I gave the team a spark.
You know, I see you sometimes after you make a mistake and you'll point to your head. And
Yeah.
Have you always been that way? Like you take such pride in it?
Yeah, I always take pride in like my intelligence as a basketball player, just like being smart out there and knowing like who to guard which way, and I always keep myself accountable.
You did blow by a guy a couple times here in this game.
Couple times, yeah.
That's what you like to do, isn't it? Getting to the basket.
Yeah, I mean, since my foot injury, this is probably the best I've felt. Like just getting up and down and getting downhill, and I just gotta get that back. Since I'm not really shooting the three ball really well, I gotta find other ways to impact the game, and I get to the rim. So
free throws too.
Yeah.
I know you pride yourself on that.
Yeah, I can shoot free throws. That I'll give that to myself.
Who's the best free throw shooter, you or Waldo?
Me, for sure.
Yeah.
He knows that.
Does he?
We all know that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a track record there.
Well, I'll remember that.
Yeah,
next time.
remember that.
I was talking about the fact though that you guys have now strung together a few games, hitting some free throws. That helps you guys, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I was talking to the group about it, like just being able to string not only stops but multiple stops in games as well. Just playing hard every single night, and we brought that on the road today, and we're gonna have another one on Saturday against Stanford. So.
How big of a deal is it to play on a Wednesday? Is more made of that than it needs to be? That you're playing on a Wednesday, it's a longer road trip. Does that matter to you guys?
No. We had a game today. We got business, and we took care of it, and we got another one Saturday. So.
Balanced scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Just how big of a deal is that in a game moving forward that you guys have so many different weapons?
Well, when you got 19 assists on 31 baskets, you're bound to have balanced scoring, and I think we did a good job at sharing the ball. And we had a lot of efficient nights: 6 to 7, 4 to 6, 4 to 7, 4 to 8, 3 to 5. A lot of good shot making and shot taking. So we did a good job sharing the wealth.
I'll leave you with this one, Keyshawn. Just like it's not a light switch. Coach Altman talks about that all the time. But you guys are healthiest that you've ever been as a team. Does it feel like something's clicked over the last, I don't know, a few days that we're getting some big wins?
I think not only we got some guys back, but we're playing a lot harder, right, from the get-go. And our starters have done a great job of setting the tone, like Waldo, Jermaine, Will, Dante, and Nate. They've done a good job. Nate's been hurt throughout the year, but he's done a good job coming back. Maine's been hurt throughout the year. He's come back too. So we've got a good boost from the starters and the guys off the bench. We've also come together, and we've decided to put the team first, and we've done a good job of giving them a spark.
Keith, congrats on the win.
Thank you.
Big win for the Ducks against Cal yesterday in the Bay Area. A couple days off before taking on Stanford, a late tip a couple days from now. You know, we talk all season long about the injuries for this team and the lack of depth. Now people are getting healthy. It's starting to feel like this is actually a really deep group. And a perfect example of that is Jermaine Couisnard. 27 to lead the way against Arizona. Only needed him to put in 9 against Cal yesterday. We talked a lot about that depth with Joey. That interview coming up after this break. Duck Insider in the Country Financial Studio. Back after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear winter, Toyota's got 20 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action, and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/22.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
Dear winter, Toyota's got 20 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action, and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/22.
Don't go anywhere. Duck Insider continues after these messages on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Meet Ed, movie buff, animal lover, safe driver.
5 years of driving an ambulance teaches you a thing or two. If people knew what I know, lives could be saved. When I see a car trying to rush past a turning bus, I get concerned. You see, when big vehicles turn right, they have to swing wide to make the turn. And that's a lesson you don't want to learn the hard way. When trucks and buses turn, let's you and I wait.
It's our roads. It's our safety. Visit www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
I've been driving trucks for a long time, and safety is my #1 priority. I know that my truck has huge blind spots. That's why I remember to check my mirrors often for smaller vehicles. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're behind the wheel, try to avoid lingering in those blind spots. It can be dangerous. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Back here on Duck Insider in the Country Financial Studio, continuing to break down a massive win against Cal. Got to keep the momentum going. That's a game you should win, and Oregon was able to decorate that win. We talked all about that with Joey Mack. Also, talk some football, talk some women's basketball. Good interview, 2 segments. Here's Joey Mack. Joined by Joey Mack from the road, joining us from a hotel in Berkeley, California. Is that where you guys are? Thanks for being
Technically
here.
Oakland. Technically Oakland.
But
okay?
right on the edge, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, but you can't go saying things like that in the Bay Area. I mean, your family went to Cal. You know the drill here. Come on.
Oh, here we go with the snippety, uppity Northern California nonsense.
No.
I grew up.
No. I grew up in Central California.
Santa Cruz is part of the Bay, as far as I'm concerned.
Santa Cruz is part of the Monterey Bay, not the San Francisco Bay Area.
This is what I'm talking about the Northern California folk. Look at what I have to deal with all the time. I think we can build a bridge between us because what happened last night in Berkeley, if we're being specific at Haas Pavilion, a building on it win for Oregon men's basketball. You know, looking at the box score, watching the game, not one player, not one headline jumps off the page. It really was an even effort throughout. So let me just ask you, what's your headline? What's your main takeaway from that win at Cal?
Well, for me, it was the energy early. That was something Coach Altman really wanted. The Ducks saw that. They were happy with that. And then it's also, for me, the fact that it was a balanced scoring effort. And truthfully, like, think about going into the season what this team was supposed to be, right? Like, Will Richardson's supposed to be the leader, but there's probably going to be a lot of games where Will Richardson doesn't have to be your leading scorer. This was one of those games. He sort of quietly scored 11 points on 4 of 10 shooting, and not his best shooting game from 3. He was 1 of 6, but he had 10 assists. He had 10 assists in the game, and it's now multiple games this season where he's had double-digit assists. And, you know, for me, that's what this team was supposed to be. It was supposed to be Dante scores 12, gives you 7 rebounds. A guy like Rivaldo Soares can go off and go 3 of 5 from 3 and score 13 points. Nate Biddle gives you 11. Keyshawn Barthélemy gives you 10 off the bench. You know, that balanced scoring effort, I think, is what the Ducks anticipated this team would be coming into the year. Now, injuries, Nate Biddle, Keyshawn Barthélemy, Jermaine Couisnard, those guys banged up. That certainly impacted things. Don't get me wrong, but now I think we're seeing what this team can be. And you know, Coach Altman said it. Like, you heard it playing it on the show when I talked to him on the post game, Jordan. Like, now they've got to do it again. And I said, you know, that the win at Arizona, I said it on the broadcast, like a season turning win. You know, and people like Rob Mose, he said, like, you know, you hope so, right? Like, that's what I was kind of channeling there when I said that with the Arizona game. And I think this is the sort of game that the Ducks needed to build upon. And now look, we all know the Stanford trip, the Cal trip historically have been tough on the Ducks. And now staying in the Bay Area an extra day, it kind of throws off the routine. The trip's a little longer. The Ducks are doing some things like today. They're practicing at the Chase Center, actually. They're going to practice at the Warriors facility. Sort of a get out and about, but also a practice, right? Like, you need to do those sorts of things when you're on the road as long as the Ducks are. And particularly with an 8 o'clock game now against Stanford, that matters, I think. I said going into the season that this was the trip that scared me. If Oregon was healthy, everything was lined up, you're coming off a hopefully big win over Arizona, the Ducks got that done, then you have that long road trip to a place that historically hasn't been all that friendly to the Ducks. It just felt like one of those weird kind of trips that could be a problem. And so the Ducks have taken the first step to not make that problem a reality, and now they got to do it again. And so shooting 60% from the floor too certainly doesn't help, Jordan. I mean, when you do that, even though the Ducks shot 38% from three, which isn't blistering from beyond the arc, but it's better than this team has been shooting, Oregon was terribly efficient inside the arc. A lot of good things to answer your question.
You know what stands out to me more than anything? The fact that at the outset of the game, the threes weren't going in, and yet the defensive intensity remained high throughout the game, even with the shots not falling. And then, you look up at the end of the game, just like you said, 38% from three. They ultimately started to go in, but the key to the game was the fact that Oregon guarded for all 40 minutes.
You're right. And certainly, though, I should say, this is a Cal team that Oregon should have been able to defend well, right? I mean, you look at all the metrics coming into the game, all the statistics. Cal is the worst offensive team in the conference, and it ain't close. And so Oregon needed to show a good defensive effort like that, and they did. They held them to 40% shooting, but it really wasn't that high, right? They got it going a little bit at the end when the Ducks had made subs, and you're right. The defensive intensity is what they wanted. Dana Altman said it. 40 deflections was the goal. They had 51 against Arizona, which is like an all-time great performance in terms of deflections on defense. Well, then in this game, they followed it up with having 40. So, yeah, I think that's a big deal. I think that the defensive intensity, I've said this before, it's the chicken and the egg, right? Does the defensive intensity and getting deflections, maybe causing some turnovers, getting some stops, does that lead to the offensive energy on the other end of the floor? Yes. But also if you have a big play like Dante's dunk and, a big play like hitting a three, Soares hits a three to kind of give the Ducks some separation last night. All of those things matter. And I think that it is sort of cyclical, right? And really it's a symbiotic relationship, so to say. All in all, I think that the defense, though, did make a huge difference, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, good to see Rivaldo Soares hit a couple shots yesterday. Doesn't he have a nice stroke? And you kind of were wondering, why isn't this going in? Yesterday, saw a couple go through the net, which was fun to see. Defensively staying on that side, because I think it has been a huge story the last two games. You have Jermaine healthy. You have Keyshawn Bartholomew healthy. Brennan's healthy. Nate Biddle's healthy. Guys can take more chances on defense because they don't need to be out there all game. Yeah. They can waste a couple fouls. Was that a factor yesterday?
Absolutely. I also thought, Dante talked about this after the Arizona State game, that when you're going to have a foul, use it well. Right. And also you can get away with fouling every now and then. It's part of the game. Now, you don't want to overdo that for sure. But, all those things I think run together. And you're right on the defensive intensity, because the Ducks did press Cal, I thought, more often than they have previous times this year. That's a result of having the depth. That's a result of having Nate Biddle in the starting lineup. And then you can bring Ware off the bench. That's a result of guys like Quincy Guerrier being a veteran that can know how to manage minutes. I've got the box score in front of me. Look at the total minutes played for the Ducks in this game. Still 35 for Will Richardson, but he's obviously demonstrated he can do that week in, week out. Dante 25, Kusnard 24, Soares 23, Biddle 21, Bartholomew 21, Guerrier 17, Brennan Rigsby played 8, Kalel Ware played 12. And then a few other guys spot in there for a few minutes. That is the depth that Oregon was supposed to have. In fact, I've talked with Coach Altman about this on the air and off the air, and I don't think he'd mind me saying this. He thought coming off the Canada trip, where they even still didn't have a full roster. Tyrone Williams didn't make that trip with the Ducks. He wasn't yet with the team. On that Canada foreign tour, he thought that the Ducks were really deep. That the backcourt was good. They had 3 guys that could handle the ball. Rigsby was a 4th option handling the ball. Even Gabe Reichel handles the ball if he needs to. He thought that they had some depth in the front court with Dante, with Ware, with Biddle, all these things. Well, then they go through so many injuries. Dana Altman was going, well, shoot, I thought we could handle some injuries. I thought we could have some depth and even weather a storm a little bit, but they weathered like a full-on monsoon and hurricane all at the same time in terms of injuries. So, certainly that impacted the season, and now this is the team that we thought they could be, but they have to keep doing it. That's going to be the assignment. It was one thing to get up for Arizona at home. It was another thing to get up for Cal. The Ducks did that, generated their own energy in a building that wasn't all that full. The Cal band probably was more than half the crowd in the game. Now it's probably going to be similar against Stanford. That's not a good Stanford team this year, which kind of surprises me. I didn't think they'd be this bad this year. We'll see. Got to bring that defensive energy. The depth matters, though, because when one guy also, not just to your point, Jordan, about the defense and generating turnovers, the depth, all those things, it's also the fact that if someone does get in foul trouble, you can make a substitution. It's also the fact that if somebody isn't shooting well or isn't playing well defensively, you make a sub. What a concept on a basketball team.
Crazy that they have those options now. Nate Biddle gets the start the last 2 games.
Yeah.
In yesterday's game, Dante and Biddle together go 10 of 15 combined from the field. It's a really good look, I think, just from my eye test, when Oregon has 2 7-footers on the court at one time. How did that lineup come across to you? What does that open up for the Ducks offensively and defensively?
Well, first of all, Coach Altman would say that when you play that lineup, you better rebound well, right? And the Ducks have done that of late. Oregon, a team that was +9 on the boards in Arizona, Oregon out-rebounded Arizona, and it wasn't close. They out-rebounded Cal last night. The rebounding is the biggest thing. I mean, that's what Coach Altman's going to say. But I think that defensively, it does give you some extra rim protection. Nate Biddle blocked a shot last night, looked good doing it. I think that the communication amongst the bigs is probably the next step defensively. There's been some missed assignments at times where Coach Altman's made a sub for one of those guys and he sends Dante back in, for example. That's something that probably needs to get better. I think Coach Altman would say that. But offensively, when Nate Biddle can stretch a forward out and take a 3, it opens up the floor so much more. It opens those passing lanes. And I think that really matters. I keep saying that today, like those things matter, and those are all things that we've talked about with these different topics that the Ducks haven't had the opportunity to take advantage of. So I think it all does factor together. But offensively, the other thing that having Dante in there, having Ware, having Biddle, not just stretching out the floor, but the lob plays. I mean, how many times have we seen a couple lob plays now to Ware? A couple lob plays to Dante. I mean, it gives you an extra option, I think, in the post to do that. There's other things too, but those are at least the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, I like the look that they went to in addition to what you were talking about, but that high-low stuff where you have Dante in the high post and then you seal that mismatch down low. I thought that's another dynamic of this offense that maybe hasn't quite been opened up recently.
Well, and to that point, Dante is a really good passer out of the post. He's really, I think, improved this year in handling the double team because so many teams have thrown a double team at him. The one thing, though, that I think he struggled with is when he would come to that high post, oftentimes he'd square to the basket, and he would cause a turnover by doing that. It's not like the other team was making this miraculous play. It's that he would square to the basket, and they'd poke the ball out of his hands. And, those things need to improve. But his ability, I think, to handle the ball, to show his athleticism in the high-low game, you're right. That's a great point. I think that the evolution in his game allows the Ducks to do that too. It's not just having the other depth in the front court. It's Dante's ability to play a little bit further away from the basket. Now, I say that all, and I will tell you that the coaches have been on him lately to catch the ball lower in the post. They don't want him catching it short corner baseline. They don't want him catching it mid-post. They want him to catch it in the block. And if he can continue to improve in all those things, I mean, we've seen it. Dante can take over a game. And they probably are going to need him to do that in one of these games moving forward. They got 12 more, as Coach Altman keeps saying. 12 more efforts. They need 12 more good efforts, and then they'll like the results at the end of this thing.
That's Joey Mack after the win against Cal. We'll continue to talk about men's basketball, hit on football, and women's basketball. Get a break, come back on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, our all-inclusive event pricing allows us to take care of all of the details while you enjoy your event. Our wedding garden, expansive grounds, ballroom, and meeting rooms can accommodate any size event and come complete with full catering and service staff. From weddings to business and social events, Shadow Hills offers the benefits of a resort atmosphere and the peace of a country setting just minutes from downtown Eugene. For more details, call us today or go to shadowhillsevents.com.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Duck Insider continues after this timeout on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
It's time for today's STEM tip. Okay, you know recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
Coming back to the Country Financial Studios, Duck Insider is brought to you by On Point Community Credit Union. Hey, Duck fans, ski season will be here before you know it. Visit skihoodoo.com for the latest updates on the upcoming season, including preseason sales, deals, and events for the entire family. Hoodoo Ski Area is your locally owned and operated destination for winter fun and a proud supporter of Oregon athletics. Part 2 with Joey Mack. 22 of 28 on 2-point shots. What was the key for you why Oregon was able to get so many easy shots throughout the game? Was there one factor above others?
I thought that Keyshawn Barthélemy put Cal on its heels a little bit with his ability to drive past the perimeter defense. I thought that was one and then Kusnard did that a couple times. I thought the bigs were also just really efficient scoring. I think that shot selection was good. I didn't think that Lars Tiemann played all that well for Cal last night. I thought he looked a little off to me for whatever reason. Maybe Dante just is better. But I thought that Tiemann didn't really give them that rim protection, and then they just didn't really have that. But I thought shot selection was a big key to that. And you know, you got to think too, Cal over the last 5 games had actually been the best team in the conference defending the 3-point line. So maybe Cal was saying, okay, we're going to continue to do that. You know, I don't know. But the efficiency, I thought the shot selection was the key to that. You know, Oregon didn't take a lot of forced shots inside. And honestly, I can think of like 1 or 2 where they did, and that guy got substituted out right away. So maybe that's a key. Right? You're talking about the depth and the ability for Coach Altman to make those subs. Well, if you make a mistake, maybe not taking a strong shot inside and you kind of just do a little hook that doesn't go in, you're getting subbed.
I think it's interesting. Oregon announces itself, I think, in a big way, like pay attention to us, to the rest of the conference in the win against Arizona. And then the next game they play is the only game on the slate on Wednesday. So the rest of the conference is kind of watching them come on, and nobody wants to see Dana Altman put this together because there's that fear factor for Oregon. But anyway, as we move today, there are a bunch of big games in the Pac-12, games between teams that are above Oregon in the standings. There's a chance for upward mobility, certainly if Oregon can get it done against Stanford. What's the key for the Ducks to get it done in Palo Alto?
Keep doing what they're doing. I mean, the effort is there, right? Like we've talked about that if the effort is there, Oregon's going to be successful because they have the length, they have the experience in the backcourt. All of Oregon's games this season where they've been really successful, it's been because of the defensive energy, and I think it's been because they have a backcourt that can handle some pressure. Stanford's 0-7 in conference. They're 5-12 overall. They just lost by a point to Washington State, but, I mean, let's be honest here. Oregon should win this game. Now, I say that. There's been a lot of times where Oregon should have won that game at Stanford. Didn't always go that way. But this is a game that Oregon needs to win. There's no doubt about that. Like, we all know that, right? Like, there's no secret about that. But ultimately, I think the key to success, I'll be honest with you, I haven't done all my notes on Stanford yet. But I do think that Stanford is the kind of team that if you do get into foul trouble and they take you out of your rhythm, they're probably just good enough to beat you. So I really think that overall, Oregon needs to keep up the defensive intensity. And then they actually did, as we alluded to, they finally hit some shots. And, here's an X factor for me, Jordan, especially on the road. How many coaches have we all heard say that you got to hit free throws on the road? You got to hit free throws on the road. Well, actually, last few games, the Ducks have been pretty good at the free throw line, and they're the worst free throw shooting team in the conference coming into this weekend's games. So I think X factors like that certainly make a difference.
I want to pivot over to the football schedule release. Comes out yesterday. I'm of the opinion that it's a significant release. Some people think that, hey, how much does it really matter? You can play the games whenever. I'm wondering what your philosophy is on schedule releases. Do you think that there's a significance to it or not?
Well, I think that it gives something like you and I, or people like you and I, to talk about. And I think
that's a cop-out answer. I'm going to press you on this one.
I think that they do matter because it's a news event, right? Like, you and I are gonna break it down and talk about it, and it keeps people interested in football. I mean, there's a reason that this thing comes out in January, right? Okay, the season ends, then we're talking about next season, then it's the early signing day, then spring practice begins, then there's the spring game, then there's the summer break, and then suddenly it's August and it's fall camp. That's why you do it. You know, that's why you don't release the schedule years in advance. But is there significance to a schedule release? Absolutely. People know when they can be at games. People know when they can buy tickets. Yes, there is significance. There is significance. If your question is about, does it give you insight into how the conference views things and the way that teams are slotted? I mean, sure. Arizona State in November. Kenny Dillingham's their head coach now. Sure.
Yeah, that's got trap game written all over it.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
So anything on this schedule stand out to you, or is it pretty chalk?
Well, I mean, the first Pac-12 game for Deion Sanders in the conference being at Autzen Stadium, I'd like to think that that's a fun storyline that leads to some national television.
I don't know if you saw this, but before they come to Autzen, they play a college football playoff team in TCU and Nebraska. So
yeah,
prime time is first 4 weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah, and selfishly, like I haven't looked at maybe you have, Jordan. I haven't looked at like the national schedule to see where, what September 23rd looks like. But just selfishly, like that's right around the time that students are back on campus. The first conference game is usually when the pit crew sort of turns out at Autzen Stadium. If there's not a lot of other stuff going on, if Oregon takes care of business in non-conference, Pac-12 opener for Coach Prime, I mean, that has game day written all over it to me. And so selfishly, I just love those sorts of attention games. That jumps out to me. And then Duck fans, I'd like to think that we welcome Deion Sanders to the conference well with a very loud Autzen Stadium and maybe a good performance by the Ducks. But other than that, I like the fact that Oregon's back-to-back road games are early on the schedule. Stanford and Washington back-to-back on the road, but there's a bye in between there. So I like that fact, right? You don't want to have to go back-to-back against two good teams on the road. The bye certainly helps in that in that regard. And the fact that Oregon doesn't have the back-to-back road games, I think, is a big deal. Home games against Cal and USC. I mean, Cal's given Oregon problems over the last few years. USC certainly a big marquee matchup. I think that the end of the season is really where you're going to learn about this team. I mean, you got to play Utah and Salt Lake City in October. Then you have to come home and play Cal again. Always gives you trouble. USC is a big-time game. At Arizona State, again, Kenny Dillingham, the storyline, that's a big game. And then look at what Oregon State has become. This is a huge rivalry right now, Oregon and Oregon State. If we were talking about travel partners on a basketball schedule, these two football teams would be the gauntlet of the Pac-12, right? With the way that these two programs are paired now and with what Oregon State has added, the fact that it's a Friday, it's a rivalry game the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, I think that the schedule factors well for the Ducks because it builds towards some of those big-time powers. You got to play Washington earlier, but it builds toward those big-time matchups that the Ducks will have against Utah, USC, Oregon State.
So I want to hit women's basketball before we get you out of here. I'm thinking about this team kind of taking an opposite trajectory to the men, where the men are starting to get healthy, and it's starting to go the other way, it looks like, for the women's team. You look at their schedule, they play 3 straight grueling 40-minute games at Arizona and then the Washington schools at home. So, in a way, it's good that they play only one game this weekend so they can take some time off and get healthy. Bad that this is going to probably be another 40-minute war against the Beavers.
Yeah, especially in Corvallis. You're right, though. The storylines of depth on these two rosters are unfortunate. It's just kind of been the way of Oregon basketball this year. And, you know, you're right. And the health of players always is important, but everybody's got something going on around this time of year. Oregon seems to have more than that on both sides over the course of the entire season. But you got to think that India Rogers, the last time she played the Beavers,
that was one of the best games in years an Oregon women's basketball players played.
I don't think Beaver fans want to see her again.
Yeah.
And I think that Oregon should win this game, but it's a rivalry game in Corvallis. I mean, you know, I've talked to Terry about this so many times. Like that game means so much for so many different reasons, but there is just no better feeling than walking out of Gill Coliseum with a win. And you're right. I mean, the depth of the team certainly is going to be tested. And I honestly, though, do think that the one game at this point in the year is a nice thing for Oregon. Like, I don't think Coach Graves would really think about it necessarily that way, but like I like the fact that the schedule fell the way that it did with Oregon dealing with what the Ducks are dealing with, because having one game in a weekend, especially if it's on a Friday, the Ducks do get a little bit extra recovery time. That's a good thing. You know, I'm all for that.
It's the type of game, you mentioned the feeling when you walk out of Gill Coliseum with a win. It's the type of win that can jumpstart things, and hopefully that's the way it goes for Oregon women's basketball. He's Joey Mack. Thanks for spending some time. Always appreciated, and looking forward to hearing you in Palo Alto in a couple days.
Yeah, I hope that history does not repeat itself in more ways than one. Thank you, Jordan.
That was an ominous way to end it from Joey. Come on, how about some positivity? No, well, we always appreciate Joey spending some time. He didn't have to, and he did. So thanks, Joey. We'll get a break, come back. Kelly Graves spoke with Terry Johnson. I love their chemistry together. That's the interview after this break on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, Duck fans! The official 2022 Oregon football trading cards are now available exclusively at your local Oregon Jackson's food stores. The cards feature over 100 of your favorite Duck football student athletes from the 2022 season. Each pack contains 14 cards, and 1 out of every 10 packs will contain a special edition signed card, so be sure to collect them all to complete your set. Visit Jacksons.com for store locations.
Jacksons. Let's go.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Duck Insider, your home for the latest news on Oregon athletics on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
This is your captain. We are going to be experiencing some slight turbulence. Please fasten your... Oh, hold on. Just got a video of my cat.
Imagine the pilot of an airplane was as confident as you are texting and driving. Seems kind of crazy when you put it like that.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Here's a fun fact for you. The average chameleon can point their eyes in 2 different directions. On the other hand, the average human can't. So unless you're a chameleon, there's absolutely no way you can focus on texting and driving at the same time. So don't do it, unless you're a chameleon.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Let's turn the page over to women's basketball with a big win last week. Again, no, what am I saying? A big game tomorrow against the Beavers at Gill Coliseum. Always fun when the two rivals get together, and Kelly Graves previewed it with Terry Johns earlier this week.
With head coach Kelly Graves and coach a third split in the Pac-12. On the road, it's not so bad, but a couple of those have been at home. But your assessment of the weekend?
Well, I always like to give credit to the opponents. I thought both Washington and Washington State played really well. They played really hard. We were fortunate to win the Washington game. We weren't at our best necessarily. We played a good game. Yesterday against Washington State, it was just not our best effort defensively, and then we just didn't shoot the ball. We didn't rebound it very well, and even still had a chance to win the game. And, we've just got to be able to pull those out, and we didn't. I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong as a coach. I'm obviously not pushing the right buttons, and we've got, we don't have much of a margin for error with, 7 or 8 players playing. Everybody has to have kind of a pretty good game. We don't have the luxury of having a couple have tough games, and so I've got to figure out how to get us all going at the same time at both ends of the court.
Heck of a comeback, though, and I know you're proud of your kids for that. They dug a hole, but that comeback, 14 points with 4:16 to go, and you get able to tie it up.
Yeah, no, I told them that after the game. I was really proud of them. Listen, I'm being honest here. The day after, I'm reflecting, but at the time, I was really proud of the team. We showed fight. We didn't quit. We didn't give up. We battled right to the end, and yeah, like you said, that was just an amazing comeback. And then to have a chance to win the game after all that, and perhaps having won the game in regulation, that's still. It's not up in the air. It's been decided, but, I think that maybe that should have been handled differently. I'll just leave it at that because, of course, you can't say anything about, referees or anything like that. You can't hold them accountable. But we can't do that at home if we expect to be in contention for a championship or even a top 4 seed. In our tournament or the national tournament, you got to win those games at home, and we didn't.
India Rogers just had an off night against Washington on Friday, but boy, did she come back.
But, that's who India is. Yeah. Look at our big games. When we really need her, she comes through. Yeah. And that's why we had the ball in her hands there at the end of the game. And, she didn't have the shot herself, but made the good decision and ended up giving it to Hina, who had a pretty good look. I was a little shielded, so I didn't see it. I knew there was a little bit of traffic, but it looked like it was a pretty decent game-winning look, and it just didn't go in. But, yeah, Indy, That's who she is, and she's kind of funny before the game. She says, "Coach, I got you," and so I knew she was going to come out and have a really good game, and she did.
Yeah, and Chance Gray, who we're going to get to talk to here for tip-off Tuesday a little bit later, she had a great game too in front of Dad, grandparents from Ohio. That was fabulous.
It was. Her grandparents are big time. Political operators in the Cincinnati area.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Her grandparents are really impressive people, as his dad, and he's a great dad. He just understands. He gets it, He's played football at UCLA. He knows what it's like at a high level, at a championship level, and and so he's a good dad to Chance. And it was nice to see her have a great game for while they were here.
Well, should we bring up the consistency word again? It seems to be, Bev said something last night. Some of her sayings. I don't know whether they're Canadian or what, but there's always some wisdom in them. And she said, sometimes the best way to get around something is to go right through it. And I was like, okay. Sometimes I have to think about things, but that one I got. But it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I don't know that. That's a deep level. I don't know exactly what she's talking about. But, it's just been, we show flashes of really great basketball, and then we have lulls, and we have just defensively. When we struggle, it's because we have defensive lapses, and that's been our bugaboo. We're still one of the best offenses in the country, even though I don't think we had a great weekend by any stretch. Offensively, we didn't shoot it well, but we just when it matters most defensively, we just don't seem to be at our best, and we've got to. And I know they're trying. I know we're trying. Our kids play hard. They want to do it, but it's just has unfortunately not always been our best time late in games, in big games.
Yeah, offensive efficiency, as you said, you have been, but this weekend the assists were down and the ratio.
And it's funny you say that, because that's one of the first things I look at when I look at the stat sheet after. And when we're at our best, we're at about 62% of our baskets are assisted, and we were below 50% in both games, which means we're doing too much one-on-one, and we're not moving the ball the way we should. We're not getting it inside and kicking it out. We're not penetrating into the paint and kicking it out and making that extra pass. We're having to do it on our own. So that's the first thing I look at.
Much more preview coming tomorrow for Oregon women's basketball, including a media availability that just concluded. That'll be on the show tomorrow. Our last segment, let's look at the men's basketball standings. Things starting to look optimistic for Oregon. That's coming up after the break on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear winter, Toyota's got 20 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action, and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/22.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Dear winter, Toyota's got 20 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action, and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/22.
This is Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Guys, it's me, Isabella Gomez, filling in for Smokey Bear because he's got more to say than just...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Like, if you're outside enjoying a barbecue, don't let a hamburger distract you from fire safety. Make sure you aren't dumping your hot coals or ashes onto the ground because that could start a wildfire. So take wildfire prevention seriously and let's save the world one day at a time. Juntos con Smokey Bear, podemos hacerlo. Go to smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Adopt U.S. Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT,
GOAT, acronym, stands for greatest of all time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider is brought to you by On Point Community Credit Union. I'm Jordan Brenner. I'll be with you again tomorrow because Joey Mack is on the road getting ready for Stanford now after the win against California. Let's take a look at the standings update here in the Pac-12. So a win yesterday for Oregon. There you go, tied for third. They vault ahead of Arizona because they haven't played yet. That's kind of what Wednesday night game will do for you. It's kind of nice when you could set the tone for the entire conference by playing a night early. And it's also nice to play with one fewer off day when you got the ball rolling and there's a lot of momentum. Now we'll have to see if Oregon can continue that with a place that hasn't been friendly to the Ducks in the past at Stanford. So an extra day off, going to practice at the Warriors facility. That's a good way to stay locked in for an off day. But there's Oregon at 5-3, tied with Utah. Arizona State and USC ahead of them. UCLA's in first. So, pardon me, not tied for third, tied for fourth. But you'll also see those matchups on the right-hand side if you're watching with us live. UCLA is playing Arizona State. So it's the LA schools against the Arizona schools. So they're going to be losses ahead of the Ducks if Oregon can take care of business on Saturday. That's going to be fun to see. And, well, the way it's kind of going in this conference, by net ranking, Oregon is batched together with a whole lot of teams. Oregon's got to pull away from the rest of those teams, go on a little bit of a winning streak here coming up the next few weeks. Starts with Stanford tomorrow. Tomorrow's show going to be a fun one. We'll hear from Kelly Graves at his media availability. We'll preview the women's basketball game and anything else that comes up. You never know here in a day at the University of Oregon. Thanks to Sophie. Thank you to Scott. Thanks to Mitchell back in the studio. Jordan Brenner signing off. Talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Ducks, everybody.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
Yes! So much waiting for me. Yeah, I wanna go outside. I wanna be.
We're here.
Whoa, that was fast.
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature. DiscoverTheForest.org. Brought to you by USDA Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You're not too cool for me. And in return,